No, you're good. We're interviewing Boo Miller. Hi, I'm Valerie, and Boo's going to tell us a little bit about himself, his life, growing up in Winoka or Folkston or wherever you grew up. Okay? Why don't you start with your name? How'd you get the name Boo?
My dear cousin, Rosemary McCall, gave me that name when I was a baby. Where she got it from, I don't have a clue. But that's how I got that nickname.
What's your full name?
My full name is Henry Wesley Miller. I was named after both of my granddaddies.
Oh, okay.
You know, my granddaddy on mama's side, her dad was Henry Paul Bailey. And my granddaddy on my daddy's side was Wesley Miller. So I wound up being Henry Wesley.
Henry Wesley.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where are you in birth order?
I am the first of my mom's children. I'm
Wow.
the oldest of 7.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom and dad had 4 boys and then 3 girls.
Okay.
And because she had boys first, she made us do girly things.
She did.
She made us learn how to housekeep, how to iron, how to wash, how to cook. Yeah.
What are your earliest recollections growing up? And where were you born?
I was born in Folkston, Georgia. And I guess not long after I was born, maybe about a year, my mom and my dad moved to Winoka to live with good mom and good papa.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandmama and granddaddy
All
on
right.
mom's side. And I think they did that because all of my uncles were away in the military, and so, you know, it was a farm, and the land, my granddaddy was up in age, and so my mom and dad moved there to be with my grandmother and granddaddy.
Okay. So, you said all of your uncles were in the military, and I know who your uncles are, but those who are watching may not know who your uncles were. So, which uncles?
Well, I guess Uncle Buddy didn't go to the military. I don't think he did. That's the oldest uncle. But he may have moved to Buffalo. But Uncle Sil, your dad, and Uncle Henry Lee, the 3 of them were in the military.
Okay, so my dad was in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
What about Uncle Sil and...
I think Uncle Sil was in the Army, and Uncle Henry Lee was in the Army.
Okay. So, moving to Winoka, what was that like?
Yeah, I don't remember it because I was so young, but I remember, you know, growing up in Winoka because I was there until I was 14.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So
yeah.
contrast Winoka with Folkston. How is it different?
Well, I guess Winoka really was rural, very rural. It was on the farm. And growing up in Winoka was in Brantley County. That's the next county over from Charlton County, where Folkston is.
When you say your uncle, which uncle? Oh, you said Winoka was in Brantley County. Okay.
Winoka was in Brantley County.
Okay.
And our farm bordered Charlton County. It was right on the edge of Brantley and the border of Charlton County. So growing up there, when I and my brother Bobby became school age, we didn't have a school to attend because there wasn't a black school in Brantley County. So my mom and my daddy sent me and Bobby over to the next county, which I believe was Long County, which was in where Ludwig was. That's where my...
And who is Ludwig?
Ludwig is a town over in, I believe it's Long County. That's the next town over on 301, Highway 301 from Jessup, Georgia. Now that's where my grandmom and granddad lived.
Okay.
On my dad's side.
Okay. What were their names?
They was Wesley and Lily Miller. Yeah. and my grandmama always called my granddad Mr. West.
Called him Mr. West.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Well,
Term of endearment?
I think it was the age difference. He was like 20 years older than she was.
Oh, he married a younger woman.
Yeah, she was 13 when he married her.
At 13? And he was 33? So how did that happen? Was that unusual?
I guess that was kind of the norm at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because your mom and your papa were like what 10 years apart.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, my dad sent Bobby and myself over to live with her during the school year. Our first 2 years, and Bobby and I were like about a year apart, so we started school together.
Okay.
I was probably like a year behind starting, and he was probably right on time. But anyway, we went the first 2 years of school, first and second grade, in Ludehuiste, staying there with my grandma and granddad. And they had 3 other kids, grandkids, that were doing the same thing, 2 other boys and a girl.
Okay.
So the 5 of us were there with my grandma and granddad, going to school in Ludehuiste. And that county had a brand new black school because they had a military base near there. So
What was the military base?
I believe it was, Camp Stewart, I believe. And I think it still exists,
Okay.
but I'm not sure.
So when I spoke with Aunt Julia, she had a lot of stories about Camp Stewart.
Okay, so it was
Mhm.
Camp Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think a lot of young ladies probably found employment there.
Mm-hmm. She
I
did.
think Rose McCall,
Rose McCall,
Aunt Lou,
Aunt Lou, and Aunt Julia.
and Aunt Julia.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot of stories about that.
Okay.
So, did you live with your aunt and uncle during
You mean my grandma?
well, when you were going to the school in those were your grandparents?
My grandparents.
So, did you live with them during the week, and then on the weekend you went back to another?
No, we lived with them full time and went home on holidays.
Oh, wow.
And during the summer.
Okay.
And that was it was rough, initially because we were away from mom and dad. And we were the low man on the totem pole as far as the other kids were concerned. And, I remember, some of those things that stick in your mind was like, we ate out of little pewter, little tin pewter plates. Each one of us had our own plate, and we had to take care of it.
Wow.
And there's a restaurant in Nashville that served out of the little pewter plates, and it brought back memories when we would go there. But that's some of the things that I remember growing up there.
Can you make sure it's picking up? Okay.
Those are some of the things I remember growing up there, having to deal with being away from my mom and dad.
So at that point, it was you and Bobby. Were there other children too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Bobby and I. We went there for the first 2 years, and then after that, and this is where good mama, our grandmama, played a big role. Initially, before I started school, I used to travel with her. She used to take me everywhere she went, and we traveled on the train and on the bus, but mostly on the train. And I remember going to Buffalo with her.
Did you ever come to Washington?
I'm trying to remember if I ever did. I'm not sure. I don't think I did.
Okay.
But I know we went to Buffalo, and we may have gone more than one time to Buffalo. And we went to Atlanta to see Ellen.
What was it like traveling with her?
It was nice. I mean, because she spoiled me really. I mean, she took me everywhere she went, and anything I wanted, she got for me. And I remember a lot of things that were, I guess, things that made me realize some things about, society and what was going on as far as, segregation and those kind of things. I remember when, she was midwife than Mama was.
Yes.
And she delivered most of us. Did she deliver you? She
I
delivered.
don't think so.
Okay, but she delivered all of us. You know, we got this thing that this was a proclamation or something where they recognized that she delivered over 1,500 babies.
That's right.
Yeah, and they were white and black babies. But anyway, I remember going with her to the drugstore where she, you know, replenished all of her supplies and stuff that she carried in a little bag when she went to deliver babies. And we were in the drugstore, and there was a white lady there with her little boy, and he had asked her for, I don't know, ice cream or cold drink or something. And so that triggered me when, because I knew that Mom would give me anything I wanted, so I told her what it was. And she said, "Boy, be quiet." And I didn't understand at the time why, but when we left out of there, she said, you know, they don't serve us ice cream or whatever it was I wanted in the drugstore. But that was my first, really, I guess, understanding that there was a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's amazing how those kind of things stick with you.
It sounds like she was very matter of fact about it.
Yes, she was. You know, she didn't. You know, I didn't. You know, like some kids would do today. I didn't throw a tantrum. You know, but so you know, that's kind of how, you know, growing up and being with her and traveling with her was. And I think I've been accused of being the one that named her Good Mama.
How did she get the name?
I think my mama told me I was trying to say grandmama.
Oh.
And it came out Good Mama because she was a good mama.
Wow.
You know? And good papa. You know, even though I don't have much, I don't remember much, you know, interaction with him at all. I never did know him traveling with her when she would travel.
What year were you born?
1940.
And your birthday is?
February 25.
February 25,
1940. Yeah.
So when he died in 1947, you were only 7 years old. And actually he died in October. So, wow. So you really didn't have a lot of...
Not with him, not at all.
What do you remember about him?
I remember him trying to teach me how to plow the mule.
At 7?
And working in the field, you know, because we grew up, it was no longer, I guess, a functioning farm. We had a few animals that we raised, but it was basically for our own, you know, food. And we grew a garden, and that was basically for our own food.
How long did it take you to learn how to plow, or did you ever learn how to plow?
Well, my dad later, you know, as I grew older, I learned how to plow. You know. And of course, basically it's, you know, just learning how to hold a plow and allow the mule to pull it.
Wow.
You don't have to help him. You just have to hold it
You
straight.
have to steer him.
Mm-hmm.
What did your grandfather do for a living?
We used to joke. We said all he did was have babies, or make babies.
Okay, that was a
I don't ever
full-time
remember.
job, huh?
I don't ever remember him having a job. I never remember him having a job. And but he just lived there on the farm. And,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
And Get Mama was the one that, you know, did work and stuff like that. Didn't Get Mama was the one that would hunt and fish. He never did any of that.
He didn't hunt or fish?
Not that I know of.
Really?
And it may have been because of his age at the time. He may have
He
done it
was
earlier
older.
because, you know, he was, as long as I remember, he was an old man. But, you know, he could have been, well,
We died, he was 73 years old.
and I was 7 when he died. So,
Wow. So he
you know,
was an old man.
he was an old
to
man,
you.
yes.
Do you remember much about his death?
No, I don't. I don't know if it was sudden. I don't remember him being sick long.
Okay. Because I read his death certificate.
Okay, what did it say?
It said malnutrition.
it, but he could have been,
Well, he probably stopped eating,
yeah.
but I don't know why he stopped eating.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure it was, he was ill, and then he
Right.
stopped eating, and that was what they wrote on.
So I really don't.
Do you know how your life changed or your mama's life changed after he passed away? Or do you remember anything changing?
The only change was, that was when, you know, I think that Mama started thinking about, you know, dividing up that property and stuff like that. So that would probably be the major change. Because your mama was really an independent woman, and, you know, so she did what she did, you know, and I don't ever remember him really being a part of that. You know, the things I remember was like that they may have done together was go to church, but I don't think that really was together because they went to the same church, but I think there were like two denominational situations with their church. One Sunday it was a Methodist church.
Oh, okay.
The next Sunday it was a Baptist church, and they flip-flopped like that.
And who was Baptist and who was Methodist?
His mama was Baptist, he was Methodist.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and for some reason, you know, I hate to think that this was the way it was, but I believe the same minister was pastor of both churches. Now that's that in my mind, that's been fixed there. Because I don't remember but one minister, and that was Reverend Buggs.
Okay. Reverend Buggs.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think he was both their pastors.
Why did Good Mama move from Winoka to Folkston?
Because they, you know, they sold the property. They divided the property up and sold it.
Okay.
But she had bought the property there in Folkston and built a house, and then we moved there after the property was divided and sold.
So you lived in Winoka until you were 14,
Yeah, lived
and
in,
then
moved to Folkston.
moved to Folkston.
But we were already going to school. Back to the school thing. The first 2 years we were in Ludaquissy, because of Good Mama again and her influence over in Charlton County with the county nurse. She, I guess that influence spilled over to the Board of Education, and they allowed the school bus, which came to Winoka. You know, most of Winoka was in Charlton County, but our farm, which was considered Winoka, was over in Brantley County. You remember Cousin Mary Jane? Do you know anything about her? And her, I think it was her grandson was named John Henry. Did you ever know him?
No.
Okay, John Henry was going to school in Folkston. They were sending the bus all the way from Folkston to pick him up, to bring him to school. And there were some other children in between Folkston and Winoka that the bus would pick up. So because of Good Mama's influence, she was able to get them, the Board of Education, to agree to send that bus 1 mile over into Brantley County to our farm.
You know how hard that was.
I know it had
because
to be
you know
hard.
those county jurisdictions,
Yeah,
people are
absolutely.
very specific about
Absolutely.
not crossing that line,
That's right.
and so she was able to.
Yeah, she was able to do that,
get
and
that.
it had to be only because of the influence she had, because she delivered babies. And so the bus came over there and picked us up every morning, brought us back every afternoon.
So you didn't walk to school?
No way to walk to school from Winoka to Folkston.
How far would that have been?
It would have been about 30 miles. It's about 30 miles, 30, 35 miles.
Quite a ways. So when you got to Folkston, where were you going to school?
We were going to school, and it was they call it an annex. Now this is where Cootsie and her family come in. They owned the property, the building that was the school that we attended. It was an annex. They had a regular school, but they didn't have enough classrooms in it, you know, for black kids. So they rented this building from Aunt Cootsie and her mama for school, and it had, I guess, must have been 4 or 5 classrooms in it. That's where we initially started going to school there. And you know, ultimately they built go to school, a newer school in Folkston.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you went to high school in Folkston, what high school did you go to?
It was Bethune Elementary School. I mean, well, it was Bethune School, Bethune High School, and elementary school, I guess. Yeah.
Is it still existing?
The building's there.
The building is still there.
When the integrated school systems, and this happened just about everywhere that the integrated school, they dropped the black names, and the later years, a group of us petitioned, I guess, the Board of Education and all, but they brought the name back. Bethune, I think it was Bethune Middle School, and I think it is still there, but I'm not sure. I don't know if there's still a Bethune School in Folkston or not.
When you were talking about Bobby, and Bobby was a year younger than you, tell me about, he was in the military, and about his death and how that happened.
He had a massive heart attack. He was playing basketball on the base in the gym.
Really?
And had a massive heart attack. And they did an autopsy and discovered that there was a problem with his heart. We didn't know it, nobody knew it.
How old was he?
Bobby had to be about 20 or 21 because we'd been out of school. We graduated through school together, graduated, and then I left and came to Nashville, and he left and went to the military.
How did his death affect you?
Well, when I left, I was the first one to leave Folkston and go to Nashville. I guess it was like, I never saw him again because when I came back, he was, in the military.
What branch of military was he in?
The Army.
In the Army.
And so I guess the effect was kind of softened because we were apart. We were, when I was close, we were real close in high school. And we played basketball together and basically grew up together. He was bigger than I was. He was tall.
What was the effect of his death on your sisters and brothers, on your parents?
I think it was, it had a more effect on my parents, probably because, how families go. I think my dad and my mom, I don't know if it was because of the military or whatever, they kind of favored him, more so than that's my opinion, and I don't know if any of the other kids felt like that or not. But it had a real, I think, a very hard effect, a strong effect on the both of them, my mom and my dad.
Did any of you go into the military besides him? He was the only one.
He's the only one except the Rabbit. The youngest
That's
sister.
right. That's right. So Rabbit was in the.
She was in the Army, I guess.
She was in the Army. Because I know she was in the.
Yeah. What was it?
Reserves or.
Yeah, she was in the reserves a good while, but I think she spent active duty.
Okay. Okay.
If women were doing active duty.
Oh, women were doing active duty.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Sylvia was in the Army.
That's right.
Sylvia's a lot older than.
Yeah. And Sylvia was a nurse.
Right.
Yeah. So, she spent, I guess, the normal amount of time in the military.
And Bobby never married, didn't have any children.
Not that we know of.
Not that you know of.
Not
I always want to qualify that.
Well, we had Bailey blood in us now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm learning a lot about that. So, after you graduated from high school, you moved to Folkston. To Nashville.
To Nashville.
So, tell me about moving to Nashville.
Well, basically when kids at that time graduated from school here, in Folkston, there wasn't anything to do job-wise or whatever. So you either left and went somewhere to get a job, or you left and went somewhere to go to school. I actually left, and not with school on my mind, but to go get a job somewhere. And basically that was up East Coast. those were my plans. But my dear cousin Rosemary was at my graduation, and she convinced me to come back through Nashville with her on my way to the East Coast.
And
And
when
I
you
never
say
made it.
East Coast, where were you going?
Like New Jersey.
And who was in New Jersey? Why New Jersey?
A lot of the kids that had graduated before were there, and and they would come back, and they had had money. Well, it appeared they did, So that was, you could get a job working the resorts or working, those kind of jobs that were plentiful, and of course, I guess the wages were higher there, and so that's where kids went that didn't go to school.
Okay.
And some stayed, of course.
But after Bobby died and then you left and moved away, what was the impact on your mother and father? Did your mother not want you to go? Or?
Well, see, I was the first one to leave. See,
Right.
I left.
Oh,
I
you,
left.
that's right, you left
Yeah,
before.
I left. Like 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, I was gone. So I left before Bobby. Bobby went in the military after I left. So, that wasn't, I guess, the answer to your question, but that wasn't an issue.
Okay. So how did Ancita feel about your leaving and going away? Was that something parents
Yeah,
were
I
concerned
really,
about?
because Mama traveled too, and she came to visit me in Nashville and visit Rose on a regular basis. My dad came one time, but I don't think that had a real big effect on her because I guess one less mouth to feed.
Well, then, that's a reality. But what were the things that were important to her if she were talking to you about your future?
Being a person of character, that kind of thing, because they instilled that in us, the stuff that they taught us growing up. We learned, we had to work, we learned to work, and I still do it to this day. But that was a value that we learned how to be respectful and respect people. So that was some of the things that she taught us, and then how to take care of yourself. I knew how to take care of myself.
So there was no push no, you have to stay home with us. You can't move away.
No, because, and another thing was, there was kind of like a foregone conclusion there that when you grow up, you become an adult, you leave home. And you didn't come back. I remember my dad, kind of jokingly, I think he was jokingly saying it. He said, when you get out of high school, I'm gonna break your plate.
I've heard that before in families where they actually broke the plate, and that meant you don't eat here.
And it was pretty well understood that when I got out of high school, I was leave the house anyway.
So your just come to Nashville for the summer turned into longer.
Right. I came to Nashville with the Rosemary, and of course, her husband Bill was a carpenter, and I started doing little things around there. I was kind of handy with tools because of some of the stuff I had taken in high school. Knew how to use tools, and so I did a little of that work, and then, but I also, because my mom had taught me to cook, I had done in the summer and sometimes after school, I had done jobs working around Folkston in restaurants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew how to cook, and that's basically what I did when I came to Nashville. I cooked, got a job in a restaurant, and did that the whole time I was in school.
From the time you moved to Nashville, how long did it take you to get a job?
About a week.
Why do you think it's so hard for kids to get jobs now?
Well, probably one thing is jobs are not as easy to get. But then kids, I fundamentally believe that you can get a job if you want one. It may not be the exact job that you want, but you can get a job. And even you can do work. I mean, you can volunteer, and you know, and people see your work habits and you know how you commit to things. You can get a job. I believe that. You know.
Do you think
may not be the job you want.
Do you think that having your aunt, cousin Rose there, and her network helped you?
Oh, I'm sure it did. Yeah, I remember when I was in school, I worked the whole time I was in school, and I had gotten a job with her influence at as a what they call it, porter, basically a janitor, working after school with the Metropolitan Nashville Health Department. They had just built a brand new health department, you know, complex, and I was the first janitor or porter, or whatever. And they sent me to school to teach me how to do that kind of work.
Wow. They wanted it done right.
Yeah, and so because they had the state-of-the-art building and they wanted it done right, and so they wanted it done right, and so they sent me to school to do that. And so I learned how to be a real professional janitor. So I did that worked there probably a year and a half, and that was about the time the civil rights movement was in full swing there in Nashville, sit-down demonstrations and things like that. Well, I wasn't able to participate because I had to work after school.
And you were in school where?
At Tennessee State.
Okay.
It was called Tennessee A&I State University at the time.
Agriculture
and industrial.
And industrial. Okay.
So anyway, I would leave school and go to work at a restaurant. Oh, well, at the health department. Well, it was an older gentleman, an older black gentleman that also was working kind of like under me. Because they had sent me to school, I was kind of like the guy in charge of all of the supplies and that kind of thing. I had the keys. And he was older. He was an older gentleman, and that was an issue with him, a young guy like me. Not necessarily telling him what to do, but he had to come to me to get supplies and stuff like that. So he told him that I was participating in the sit-down demonstrations. They fired me. And because of Rosemary's influence with, you know, she worked for the school, I mean the place where you send the bad kids,
the detention facility?
Yeah, and she was, you know, she was over the kitchen for that, but she had influence with the judge who ran the county. This was the county, this was never before a metro government in Nashville, so it was a county city, and so she ran the kitchen and she had influence with the judge, and when they fired me, she, you know, interceded with them and got my job back.
Really? So they fired you, and then she intervened, and they took you back. Now, was it ever revealed that the guy had misrepresented that you had done this and you had not?
I think they knew that, but then, you know, there was still that issue of, you know, the desegregation stuff. They ultimately did away with the job.
Oh, okay. So you won
essence,
the battle, but then you lose the war.
Yeah.
Wow. And what happened to the guy who reported you?
I guess he still worked there.
Okay.
But anyway, I went back to cooking, what I knew how to do. So.
Do you think part of it was that you were also in college and you were younger,
and it could have been that.
You could see that you know, weren't going to be there for a very long time?
Probably. It could have been all of that, yes. Yeah.
You know, it's funny, when I talked with Aunt Julia, and what's interesting is every other word she said about her childhood, Rose was a big part of it.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happened.
It really
She
is
was.
amazing.
She was, you know, I guess none of us are perfect, and we all have flaws, but she always put family first. She did, and she was a major reason why the reunions, you know, kept going.
What was her role in the reunions? Because everyone attributes the first reunion to you.
Well, and you know, and that was
because of Aunt Dell.
Yeah, we it just so happened Rose and I flew up to Buffalo to attend her funeral. And while, you know, we were there after the funeral, we got to talking among family members, and so we talked about it, and I had mentioned it to her before about it. Because, and I did that because Pat's family had a long, their reunion had been going on for years, and I had attended, you know, 2 or 3 of theirs.
So what year did you and Pat marry?
We married in '93. I mean, in '63.
63, okay, so then the Bailey family reunion started in 71.
71.
And Aunt Dell died in 70. So this was about 7 years into your marriage. So when you first thought about the reunion, what was how did it come about? What was your vision?
I saw what their reunion was doing, and how it brought the people together, and you know, it brought a closeness of the family and understanding of the histories of their family, you know. And one of the things about Pat's family was her granddaddy was, I guess, grew up with a slave name, and when he got ready to get married, he changed their name and created a name that wasn't a slave name.
Wow.
Newborn, N-E-W-B-O-R-N, so I can.
So that was a new name. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and so that was the name that he changed to. I remember now. I mean, I don't remember, but I remember them telling us the history of it and what their slave name was. And so from him on, it was their name, Newborn.
Wow.
So you know, that had a real impact on me and family, and how, you know, families could better understand one another and get to know one another, and you know, share in the successes and even the failures, I guess.
So what was Rose's role in the development of the reunion?
She thought it was a good idea, and she was in a position to really help promote it and to you know, make sure that we could carry it on in times when, you know, it would appear that it wouldn't go.
Now,
She pushed it.
what's interesting is the reunion started in 1971, but you have all of these, you know, and I look at the picture of all the siblings, all the children, and you know, we experienced the reunion as a very happy event, but think about it, all those personalities, everybody had to get behind this. Was it like that from the beginning, or were there people who were sort of like, eh?
Yeah, there were issues, you know,
Well,
people, there aren't many families, I don't believe, that don't have issues. Maybe family issues, misunderstandings among, you know, siblings or cousins or uncles or whatever.
Okay,
You know,
but did you have people saying, you know, I think the reunion should be this, and no, I think it should be that, or, you know?
Not really, because we had a pattern, you know, and we patterned it after the newborn reunion. They had bylaws and stuff like that, and so it was fairly simple to do those kind of things. And so that wasn't really an issue. It seemed like everybody pretty much kind of agreed to the basic concept of how you do it, you know. So.
In the beginning of the reunions, how were sites chosen?
I think the initial one was, that's we hosted it in Nashville, wasn't it?
It was in Folkston.
In Folkston, that's right.
It was in August
That's right. It was in
because
Folkston.
2 months later, the mama died.
That's right. Sure
And I
was.
remember that.
That's right. Sure
And
was.
we were all sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
And I don't know whose house I was at, but I was on the floor somewhere.
Yeah.
And I had an absolute fabulous time.
I think the fact that your mama was at her age, and that Folkston was where we would probably be able to get everybody to agree to come, was how it wound up being in Folkston. Yeah.
And I remember that reunion. She was in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Was she conscious and aware of
Let's see.
what was?
Did I show you that picture?
Yes, yes, you did.
Yeah, but I don't think she was. Well, she was conscious, but you know, I think that was kind of what today we would consider Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they call it, hardening of the arteries.
How did her death affect the family?
You know, because she had been ill so long.
How long had she been ill?
She had been ill a good while, probably maybe 10 years.
Oh, what was she ill from? From what you remember?
Basically, this thing that we considered hardening of the arteries. Because I remember times when I would visit, she would initially know who I was, and then she would like come back and say, "Now, who are you?" That kind of thing. So, but she was, you know, she was mobile, was moving and all that. But I think because of that memory lapse thing, she was, you know, mom and Aunt Lou and those, Kimberly, had to kind of watch after her.
With whom was she living?
She was living with mom. Actually, you know, the mom had built the house there in Folkston, and then later on deeded it to my mom. And so mom, you know, was like a caretaker from the time she became ill and on up until her death.
So when you were married in 1963, how did you meet Pat?
My dear cousin Rosemary. She introduced us. They were going to church, going to the same church. So when I came to Nashville, one of the first persons I met was Pat, but you know, we didn't start dating or anything like that either. But we were going to church, going to the same church. I joined that church, and Pat was, well, we didn't call them ministers of music, but she played the piano for the choir, and I joined the choir. And so, I guess after, so that was in *59, and then we got married in '63. So, after maybe a couple of years, we started dating, and then we got married. Yeah. So, I can accuse Rosemary or thank her. But
She had a regular social service agency, huh?
she did.
I mean, she helped you get a job.
Yeah.
She redirected your entire life. Did you ever make it to the East? You were talking about the Northeast, and
No.
never left Nashville.
Never left Nashville.
That's amazing.
It is.
So after you graduated from Tennessee State, what was your first job?
Well, my first job, cause, I mean, of course, you know, you remember I worked the whole time I was in school. I remember taking at Tennessee State some special training in electronics and basic electricity and those kind of things. Because of that, I qualified for a job with the Tennessee Valley Authority as an electronics mechanic. Okay. In the meantime, the DuPont company, you know, this was in, I don't know if you remember, in 1964, the federal government came down on the major corporations in this country on their hiring practices and their discrimination practices where they were not allowed.
Oh, I remember the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah, that was it. It made them have to start offering employment to every person regardless of their color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Pat's uncle worked for the DuPont company, and so he asked me if you know if I wanted to work for them, and he brought me an application. I filled it out, and then maybe I started working for them in '65. A couple of years after we were married, I got a job with them. That's where I worked for the remainder of my career with them.
How many years did you work for DuPont?
37 years.
37 years, and what are the different jobs you had during that time?
I was basically a chemical operator. DuPont's, you know, major chemical companies in the world, and so I worked for them doing that. And then my latter, about the last 10 to 15 years, I worked with them doing like multicultural training and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. How would you characterize your 37 years with DuPont?
Trying. I was working there when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I remember I was working evening shift, and the people there, when that happened, you know, they got on the PA system and was, you know, like celebrating.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious. That was, you know, that was a trying time, and I was very militant at the time, and it was hard to, you know, to contain, you know, my anger and that kind of thing. So, I mean, and remember when I started working with them, you know, the changes just taken place. They still had in place the colored white restrooms
Within DuPont?
Mm-hmm. And at that site. I mean, probably all the other sites in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And then the colored white water fountains. But they, you know, they couldn't demand that you use them. Or there were suggestions and stuff like that. But you know, most of us who went to work for them were kind of on the militant side, and you know, we were just hoping one of them would try to make us, you know, that kind of thing. So that was some of the issues that I had initially going to work for them. Even though those laws were passed, the people implementing them were people who were not necessarily in favor of those things. So it was difficult to immediately, you know, see those things change. And it didn't really start to change until we were able to, because of the networking process among minorities and so forth, we were able to hold the major leaders in the corporation, the corporate leaders, to their own mandates and make sure that they followed through. And so they did initially. I mean, they did eventually follow through on their own policy and started really implementing programs that would allow people of color and other minorities to progress up through their line, their chain of progression to, you know, to successfully grow in, you know, in a job and have a path of that would secure their success.
Were there many college-educated black people working for DuPont while you were there?
There were lots.
There were lots.
But they would reach this glass ceiling thing, and because number one, DuPont recruited from the top 10%, you know, and they trained them. They had an excellent training program, but then they would reach the glass ceiling, and then the other major corporations would come in and hire those people, and they would go right up the top. You know.
Had you thought about ever leaving DuPont and going someplace else?
Not really. I mean, I had a good income, had a decent income. I didn't want to leave Nashville.
Didn't want to leave Nashville?
No.
And so a promotion or leaving
promotion
might have
generally,
meant going someplace
it would have
else.
meant that, yeah, basically, it would have meant. But because of my activities working with the multicultural training and promoting that was kind of that hampered me to some degree, because again I was pretty vocal. And so, you know, we were able to get other people in, but then some of the powers that was still there was like my downfall of my own. Kept me from you know, progressing to that. And then, of course, you reach a point where, you know, I enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed being a part of a group that could bring other minorities up into that process until I just was happy doing that.
Were you able to bring other younger people into DuPont the way that Rose networked? Were you able to bring other people into DuPont?
Well, in a sense, it was like that. You know, we became a part of a hiring process, a training process, the testing, recruiting.
Were there any other Bailey family members that you brought into DuPont?
Diane basically was the only one.
How did Diane get into DuPont?
She, because I encouraged her to come in as an operator. She did, you know, and she got a degree, and it wasn't long before we offered a promotion to her. She did that, and she started at the progression path.
And she had left Nashville.
She
was
left.
in Delaware.
She left Nashville, yeah. But you know, and she, to progress, she pretty much had to do that. Yeah. But we were able to come back.
So what year did you retire from DuPont?
In 01.
2001. So what was your plan for retirement?
What to do after retirement? Travel. And it was so funny how that kind of happened. I took a buyout and didn't work for a year because of the buyout and, you know, the financial tax situation with that. So after the year was when my dear wife suggested that we do trucking.
That was 2002.
2002. Wow. Part of my buyout package was $5,000 that was available from the company for me to retrain into anything.
Wow.
So I took that money and learned to drive a truck. and then we found a company in Indianapolis that would train Pat if we agreed to drive for their company.
Wow.
So that's what we did. We packed up everything, got rid of the dog, shut down the house, went to Indianapolis, and she trained, and then we hit the road and did that for 2 years and enjoyed it. I often tell people it was like the best 2 years of our marriage. We enjoyed it and made a little money, and then she became ill.
Okay.
It's cut off?
No, but
How much tape do we have left?
I don't know.
Okay. So she became ill, and you came off the road.
Yeah, sold the truck. Took care of her. Yeah.
And so I remember she passed away in 2003.
2005.
2005, that's right. That's right, in April.
Yeah, April 10th,
That's right, yeah.
2005.
I remember. And so you no longer was on the road with the truck. What did you do?
My dear daughter had gone to a job fair before Pat passed away and met this guy that was recruiting drivers for a courier company. She told him about me. And I went and interviewed with him and told him, you know, about Pat's situation and all. And he said, well, you know, if you, later on, you know, depending on what happens, if you want to do it, you know, give me a call. So I guess it was a couple of weeks after Pat passed away. I needed to do something, get out of the house and that kind of thing. So I went and saw him and started doing courier service. became an independent contractor with them, and so and I still do that. I
Wow.
enjoy it.
So
I
you enjoy that?
I enjoy it, you know.
What do you enjoy most about it?
And just meeting people. I meet a lot of people, and the nature of the work brings you in contact with, with good people. Because, I deal with the people that's out front, at the front desk, that kind of thing. And usually companies put their best people out there. You don't have to listen to the complaints and all that kind of stuff. Basically, everybody have a positive kind of attitude.
So besides your work, what else do you do in your retirement?
What retirement?
What retirement? Sounds like you're pretty busy.
I'm involved in church, and I just started playing golf.
Oh, okay.
So
you're going on the golf tournament tomorrow.
Going on the golf tournament tomorrow, and I like that. Tim's been playing. Tim's been playing 15 years, and
wow.
He's been after me, on and off to do it, and so I finally decided he got excited with it, and decided I was going to be doing it. So I like it, enjoy it. I don't know how good I am, but I'm learning.
It sounds like you are a lifelong learner.
I think so.
So many things that you've done and you enjoy doing.
Yeah, I do enjoy doing it.
So I got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
For your children and grandchildren that are going to be watching this, what would you say to them?
Wow, that's a good question. They need to try to get to know who they are, what kinds of gifts and skills they may have, develop them, and be true to themselves, to themselves about who they are, and try to do things that will develop good character. Get a job. Develop a career.
Okay.
Yeah. And
my second
be
question is, and be a Christian.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask that because I know how important that is to you,
right.
but I wasn't quite sure where that fit in
Okay.
your vision for them. And my last question is, where should the 2015 Bailey Family Reunion go?
To the people that want to have it the most.
All right. To the people who want to have it the most. So I noticed, every family reunion does something different, but this group has now entered into this poll where they've asked you to...
That's a neat idea.
What did you think about that?
I think that's a neat idea. We
You
probably
like the
should have been
idea?
doing that some time ago.
Well, what if the group that everybody wants to take it doesn't want it? What do you do then?
Well, I would think that there was some reason why that idea got out there. Somebody had to express a desire, I would think, to do that. So I don't think anybody that didn't want to have it would express any kind of desire to do it unless they truly wanted to.
Mm-hmm. But what happens if we all say, we want to go to Nashville? And the Nashville folks say,
Who was it that
I don't want to go to
expressed that desire? But, I think it'll, if that is the way it turns out, that somebody who really wanted it, got it, they'll do well at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's the hardest thing about putting on a reunion?
I guess finding a group of people that's willing to work together to do it. Because, if you find a good group, now you bring all your ideas and your energies together, do it.
Does it require age?
Well,
I mean, is it something older people should do, or should younger people do? Or?
I think good, positive, exciting excited people should do it regardless of what your age is. If young people who maybe have careers and have had some degrees of success in their, in their lives, or their marriages, or their careers, are ideal because they already know how to get things done. So that would be. I don't think it necessarily has to be a specific age group.
Okay.
I think with this group, we view them as being young, but they're probably about the same age we were
when you got started.
when we
That's
got
right.
started.
That's right. Is there a question that I didn't ask you? Is there something that you want to say that I didn't cover, or?
You better say it in less than a minute.
I think I've said a bunch, but I can't think of anything, other than, I'm a Christian, and and I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior, and that, I would encourage each person to consider that, to get, to accept Him or get to know Him, and you do that through His Word, and try to pattern your life after the life that He lived before us.
Okay, well said. Well, thanks for this opportunity. I
Well,
really
thank you
appreciate
too.
it.
Thank you too. I'm glad you did this. I appreciate the stuff that you're doing and that Georgetta's doing. You see her book?
Yes, it's phenomenal.
It is.
She's done a great job.
Sure has.
Well, this is not the end. This is just a comma. I'm sure there's going to be other things you want to. Kathy's nodding her head, so.
And I'm
we'll
glad
have to
that
continue.
we're doing stuff like this, because I've always thought that we ought to get the people who lived before us to sit down and talk about it and share their life.
Yeah, George and I talked about that. It's it's just a tragedy that we didn't do this earlier, but
Yeah.
be that as it may.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to stop.